Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I apologize. My name is Richard Sinapi. I'm here today on behalf of the New England Mechanical Contractors Association. It is a New England organization of the large, heavy construction contractors. We build vertically, and my contractors are involved in HVAC, process piping, and the like. We employ primarily union labor, Local 51 plumbers and pipe fitters. I'm here today to register our opposition to this bill. And it's really very simple. Yes, it means jobs. It means work for my members, work for our client union. But perhaps overriding this, as you heard from the testimony, is that this bill is bad policy and bad for the economic stature of this state. Before I talk about that, I'm going to address three issues. One is the issue of taxation, Mr. Chairman. It's come up 3 times. I can assure you, having been involved in tax treaty negotiation over the past 30 years, having some familiarity with economics, no power plant for $750 million is going to get constructed anywhere in this country and pay the assessed tax rate. Not going to happen. That kind of construction skews the entire tax rate, and that project ends up paying at regular rates the bulk of the municipality or locality's taxes. It doesn't work. It skews everything. You have to have a tax treaty. It's not going to happen. It's fantasy to think it would. Secondly, water has come up in a couple of contexts. PUD has well 3A. Well 3A has in fact been shut down. It was shut down because it was not suitable for potable purposes. You cannot drink that water, contaminated with MTBEs. However, you can wash with it. You can bathe with it. You can't consume it. That contamination is 16 years old. That's and that well produces 650 gallons per minute. It's one of the highest producing wells in the state, certainly in the town. That well, properly filtered, can more than enough water to supply that facility without impacting the water reserve for portable usage in the town. Not only that, you pump that enough, you're going to clean out that aquifer, and that water will be available someday for potable use as well. Third part that come up is Rep. Rudenberg has mentioned a couple of times about the ISO auction. There's a couple of things I'd like to say about that. First of all, the ISO auction is about future capacity. So if something was left on the table, it was about future capacity. It wasn't about current demand, near demand. With that said, to me it's very simple. We're in a capitalist society. Nobody's going to come in and say they're going to spend $750 million if there was not a demand for that power. They know there's a demand for that power. There is a demand for that power, or they wouldn't expend that kind of money. People make mistakes. They don't make mistakes that big. This bill is bad policy. Why? Because, quite simply, 18,000 people cannot make policy. 18,000 people cannot negotiate a tax treaty. 18,000 regular people don't have the knowledge, the time, or experience to engage in that kind of process. That's why we live in a republic. That's why we vote representatives. More importantly, 18,000 people cannot engage in the kind of collegial discussion, the kind of reliance on experts, the give and take, the building of a consensus that the republic and our representative government gives. And that's key to making good policy. That's key to absorbing everything and making a non-emotional, logical, significant decision. And I understand the purpose of this bill. This bill is not to facilitate a construction of this plant. It is to make it harder and, if not, kill it. And I understand that. And I understand the constituents here, and I understand why Rep. Kegel put it in. He believes this is bad for his constituents, and I certainly understand that. As the other speakers have indicated, I certainly am empathetic. But this committee and the General Assembly generally has to look not just at the impact or desires of one portion of the constituency. You've got the entire state. And as Mr. Sabatoni has indicated, this is a statewide issue. In fact, it's probably, as he said, a regional issue. This body must dispassionately weigh the costs and benefits. And one of the costs of not building this thing, frankly, is economic. You're going to have hundreds of millions of dollars in wages that would be paid to residents of this state going across the border, because that's what's going to be built right in Massachusetts nearby. You're going to have hundreds of millions of dollars in payroll taxes and income taxes go across the border. You're going to have over $250 million over the life of the loan in local revenue that would be paid in pilot to the town and the locality. Also, you've got a problem, and that is the cost of electricity. One of the highest in the nation is Little Rhode Island, in the Northeast generally. As Mr. Sabatoni's indicated, we're losing 3 plants, but let's put some numbers on it. 2,800 megawatts we're losing just from those 3 plants.
So
now, let me
I
put
just
that
want to keep us to, as much as possible, not repeat, because we're obviously, again, we're really only like 1.5 pages out of 10.
I'm moving right along.
Yeah.
I
I'm
appreciate
trying to
that.
avoid
Moving right along. To put that in perspective, if you want to go with green energy or how are you going to replace that somehow, you could do it with wind. We got 5 wind turbines. They're going to produce a total of 30 megawatts, not even close to replacing the 2,800 megawatts at all, plus at a cost anywhere from 6 to 12 times what the gas-fired power plant would produce and provide. I understand the concerns of the residents. I feel their pain every day when I hear the plane over my head in Coesit. Wakes me up in the morning. And I feel it more recently when I travel through Apponaug, and they've got all this construction going on at 3 different places that I can't escape. And I understand that. But I also understand I chose to live in Coesit. I knew Apponaug, and I knew they had an airport. The airport could expand. I knew they could do construction. That's part of it. I live with that. I understand that. I don't have to like it. But I feel their pain, and I understand. But the fact of the matter is they purchased property adjacent to one of the biggest natural gas pipelines in the state. That's where they chose to purchase their house. So if somebody's going to build a power plant, is it going to be in the city of Warwick? Is it going to be adjacent to a power plant? Adjacent to a portion of the power plant that's already tapped for a gas compression facility. In closing, I'd just like to share one thing. I've been working for the better part of a year to bring to this state a potential $1 billion investment that would be a game changer for the tourist industry of this state. A year trying to say that Rhode Island is a good state to locate. Providence is a great location. We've got a lot to offer. This legislation passes. You change the process after the fact to make it more difficult. You tell everybody that if I'm going to build a major project, which is going to have some negative impact, and nobody's going to spend $1 billion on a project, a game changer, that's not going to have some negative impact to somebody. You pass this legislation, I can tell you that's not happening. I'm done. I'm done. My work is over. You can put a sign out front and say, do not come to this state. Because if you want to make a major project that has some negative impact, we're going to change the deal after the fact. We're going to make it harder for you. That, perhaps, is the worst part of this legislation. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Rep. Regenberg.
What's the estimate for how long this construction will last?
I'll defer. 3 years? That's for both plants, though, not just for one, both. You get the 500 and the 500.
Okay. Just because, again, going back to the ISO issue, and I'll stop talking about this right after this, I swear. But you mentioned how the ISO auction is prospective. I think it's 3 years in the future, and doesn't have to do with the shortage or need now. And it sounds like if the project won't be completed in at least 3 years, there's no discrepancy there at all. And again, and I think this has been pointed out, but again, you brought up the 3 or more power plants that are going to be taken offline. But again, all of that is very much taken into consideration in that auction.
I would just add that there's those 3 power plants, their capacity is coming offline gradually. So that as demand increases and as supply is being reduced, our demand is going to go up significantly. I rest, again, on the fact that anybody willing to spend that kind of money must know that there's demand and a need for demand. But I defer to Mr. Beretta because he has more information on the ISO auction. Rep. Rugenberg, he may be more helpful to you.
He's not signed up to speak, I don't think, though, on way. All right. I just want to make sure we're clarifying that because I was going to. Okay. Thank you. Other questions? No.